you have a choice because this is America. You have a choice on what you believe. You have a choice on whether or not you wear a mask.
That if we don't actually start acting as human beings, we're
I infiltrated Antifa. We know about these Antifa journalists, and we're coming for them.
So what are you afraid of?
God is at the wheel.
2024 is the last day.
the radical left's agenda is declared war on the everyday American.
Opposing the corruption of election fraud. Ladies and gentlemen, please stand and greet Joe.
Hey, welcome back. I'm joined with Joe Hoft. Joe, thanks for joining me this morning.
I'm happy to be here, Joe. An honor as always.
Joe, we have a lot to go over today, and there's a lot that you're gonna bring some fire with today. And we're also going to be joined by Alicia Powe, who is a spokesperson for Ryan Samsel. If you don't know who he is, he's a J6er that was beaten, has denied cancer treatment, denied medication, put in a hole, transferred to 20 plus gulags. It's torture. They're torturing this man in prison. He was supposed to be on with us this morning, but he can't join us because they put him in the hole. Coming on Conservative Daily, I think we're going to put you in the hole. So we'll be joined by his spokesperson as well. There's a lot going on in Georgia. I don't know if you've been paying attention to this. I assume you have. Given it's really close to you in a lot of different ways. But we had something that came out yesterday that, frankly, we've seen it all. We've seen them gaslight the American people. We've seen them gaslight and persecute people. I believe that there is a legal action, Joe, against these people collectively and individually, where we just start suing all of them, not just for defamation, but for fraud, for RICO violations. And we go to the most conservative places in the country, and we file those in state and federal actions. And we just bombard them with it. And we make them defend themselves in different states around the country. And we just go after them with everything we have. I don't think that there's another option other than that. But yesterday, at the Georgia State Election Board meeting, a member of the board, Janice Johnston, responds to cybersecurity concerns in a submitted petition. She revealed that 4 county systems were hacked in the past year. And this was the Gateway Pundit put this up. Let's go ahead and play cut one.
As far as hacking, it's not a matter of if a system gets hacked, it's a matter of when. And this past year, 4 counties, election computer IT systems have been hacked. And certainly every time I read about it, it raises a concern that it was a backdoor entry into our election system in some way or another, whether it's the voter rolls or into the county's election software and systems. So that is a constant concern. And since you haven't brought up the cybersecurity part of your petition, I guess I will refrain from other questions about that, but I just wanted to mention that.
Joe, what do you think of that?
Joe, well, she's a hero. And I believe she was at the Trump rally recently, and the crowd gave her a standing ovation. This is she's part of that Georgia Board of Elections, I guess. And it's been very corrupt over the last few years. She's come on board, and recently they've really been, I think they've changed their direction, leaning more towards the truth. This morning, I put a piece, Joe Rossi, who's he's a professor, engineer, sharp guy down in southern Georgia. He started looking into the election after 2020. And in particular, he started looking at what was out there online as they provide their support. He contacts people like Gabe Sterling, says, hey, your data's not right. You don't even have enough information for maybe even half of the ballots that were counted. You're supposed to put it all out there. You don't have it. They argued back and forth. Eventually, they updated their numbers because Joe was right. And he started digging into the audit of the election, where he found all sorts of stuff. And he brings it up this morning in a presentation there in Georgia in Fulton County. And he says Georgia owes President Trump an apology. He says this morning, and he says, because this Fulton County, we're finding more and more and more. And he uses the word fraud. What they did is that he's got now proof that ballots, images were counted more than once in Fulton County, which is Atlanta, and at least 3,000 that they were able to determine. And that the Fulton County, even up till about a month ago, was saying, well, we're not sure if they were actually counted. He goes, they were counted. We have evidence. We can prove it to you. And you were lying. 3,000 ballots in Fulton County. And he says this is the same county that's indicting President Trump and whatever 15 others, 14, 15 others, or whatever the number is, for saying the election was stolen in Georgia. 3,000 votes would have swung the vote. Trump to Biden, Trump would have won. So this is more information that's coming out. We've had Garland Favorito point out that 330,000 images are missing in Fulton County from the original count. So you can't even determine what the actual count was. The evidence is gone. We've learned that another in the recount, I believe, the images related to Fulton County, like 160,000, have been tainted with. They've been edited. And David Clements brought that up here recently in a presentation we gave in Milwaukee. Jim and I and David and Lara Logan, we laid out what's going on there. The Georgia was a total mess. It still is. You've got Brad Raffensperger, the criminal that ran the 2020 election, who lied to President Trump, said everything was fine, when we know he had evidence from that night, from a text on election night at midnight from a guy that Raffensperger hired to be there because this Georgia elections board mandated it because of the prior elections were so broke. This guy, Carter Jones, texts Raffensperger's top attorney, Ryan Germany, and says, hey, basically all hell's breaking loose here. I just saw Shea run through a batch of ballots that Ralph just ran through, or some name similar to that. It was a mess. They knew it. He lied about it. And now and even Joe, more recently, we find out that they didn't even do signature verifications on all these ballot images in Fulton County. That's thousands, hundreds of thousands of ballots. They didn't even check for the signatures, which is against the law. That's been hidden from Trump. That's been hidden from the American people. And we're finding it out. These people are crooks.
So let me run through the total statistics in this cut. In this, Georgia State Election Board will discuss SEB 2023-025 this morning. 17,852 votes were counted with no ballot images. 20,713 original votes from tabulators out of thin air. 3,930 duplicate counted and inserted via international human intervention, aka fraud. So here, let's watch this. This explains the 17,000. Let's just go ahead and watch it.
You all know our case is SEB 2023, thank you, -25. In that case, you know that it involved 17,852 votes counted without ballot images. You also know that for the first machine count, 20,713 ballots were counted with what I like to call receipts. I guess the fancy word is tabulator tapes. And I always like to say you can't get out of Walmart these days without showing your receipt, but for some reason you can count 20,000 votes without a receipt. The last part of this complaint perhaps is the most concerning because we've uncovered some recent information that makes it so. In addition to proving that 3,930 ballots were scanned and counted. I want to say that again, and counted. And I sure hope that Miss Charlene McGowan is listening. Miss McGowan, on May 7th, you and your team got up before the board and said, yeah, I think Mr. Rossi's right. These ballots were scanned twice, but we're not sure if they were counted twice. That is a lie. And we know that because the data that shows they're counted twice is on the cast vote records, and that is available to the Secretary of State. Other experts know that those ballots were counted twice. Media sources know, I saw Mr. Nisi from the AJC just walk up here, and not to get him in trouble, but he recently reported he thinks they were counted twice also. And that's from the AJC. Sorry, Mark, if I'm going too far, just say, stop, Joe, you're going to get me in trouble. Okay, so they were counted twice for the second machine count. We know with certainty that this duplication of ballots was not, I want to repeat, was not an administrative error. And I'm going to demonstrate to you how we know that shortly. Rather, the duplication process was due to intentional human intervention. And I'm not a lawyer, but when I ran this by a few lawyers, they told me this is the phrase. Intentional human intervention is the predicate for election, I'm going to use the F word, fraud. Okay, you're going to hear me say that, sir.
Joe?
Yeah, he nails it. He nailed them. And like I said, the margin of victory was very slim. We've already identified all sorts of issues. Like I said, big numbers. The thing I didn't like about this presentation from Joe, although I agree with everything he's done, he's a great guy, he's a great patriot, is it minimizes the steal in Georgia. Garland Favorito found 1.7 million ballot images that are missing from the election in Georgia. So 1.7 million. This, we're talking about 3,000 is validated. It's confirmed. The issue was much bigger, and we all know it. And that's kind of what, because the win was only like 12,000 or so for Joe Biden over President Trump after Trump was up by 200,000 on the morning after the election. 3 days later, suddenly they call the election for Joe Biden. But the problem is, it was much bigger than that. The steal was huge in Georgia. We all know it.
Well, I want to put this up, and I read a tweet yesterday. It said, Joe, you're responsible for this entire mess with Dominion. And I was like, I probably am. But in December, I got sued by Eric Coomer. And when I got sued by Eric Coomer, if we can find a way, Mr. Producer, to put that all the way up so that we can see the whole thing, I decided to dig into the system architecture of Dominion. Now, Joe, we didn't have any information in December. We had none. We had a preliminary report by ASOG for what happened in Antrim County that said that the machines were designed to defraud the American people. It said that. But I wasn't looking for that. I was looking for vindication on Eric Coomer, the head of strategy and security for Dominion Voting Systems. the one that was on the call that said, don't worry about it, Trump's not going to win, I made effing sure of it. The Satanist, the one that is Antifa follower, that posted the Antifa manifesto, that hates cops, wants to kill them, hates the USA, is a rabid Trump hater. I mean, that's the guy out of all the 2,000 or so people, that's the guy that I needed to vindicate on was, could he actually do it? Now, what's interesting, Joe, and this is me putting everything together this is another pin on the board that I built, is that Eric Coomer was the spokesperson in Georgia. That's what led me. That article about Eric Coomer being the spokesperson is one that led me to speak up about Eric Coomer. Because I wouldn't have recognized, I mean, obviously I thought it was stolen, but I didn't know that Dominion ran 50% of the vote of the American people. I didn't know it, right? I wasn't looking for them. I was looking for journalists. But if you look at this, Joe, go ahead and put it up side by side with us if you would. If you look at this, let me just repeat what was in Liz Harrington's post. Now, I presented this, by the way. I presented this to Pompeo's counsel, which, we probably should. It's a good thing that I have other people that were there, because you wouldn't have believed what I'm about to say, because they've tried to discredit me, but it did happen. So here I said that it had to be connected to the internet. Now, Joe, did they say that it had to be connected to the internet? Did they say it was connected to the internet?
You're talking about Joe Rossi, or in the past? In the past, they were denying that under oath. Yeah. And even in Michigan, under oath, the head of Dominion said that.
And what did I say? No way. It has to be connected to the internet. Right? Because I went through every one of their architectural and books and everything. I went through everything. And Joe, the reason why I'm saying this is because inside of Liz's post, she said 20,713 original votes from tabulators out of thin air. Super important, right? Now let's put all this together. I might even do like a 5-hour show on this. I said your absentee ballots, your mail-in ballots are the biggest problem inside the system. It is the gas to the fire, right? They send them in, they scan them in, they then have to inspect for signature. That's called adjudication 1. They call it signature verification, but it's still an adjudication. You still have to adjudicate the signature, right? From there, they compare it to records, so they have to have a voter registration validation tool of some sort, right? Which they have to have some sort of internet connectivity or database that's there, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, if it doesn't match, they have to send it to get cured, right? So you have a right to cure, right? It doesn't validate, and then they go over and they cure it, and it comes right back down to the inspection, and boom, those votes are verified, right? Now, this is absolutely correct. As of right now, this is correct?
Absolutely.
Okay. Now, and you're an auditor.
Yeah.
And this was in December of 2020. We didn't know anything. We didn't have Arizona. We didn't have it. We had nothing. We had no Arizona. We had no New Mexico. We didn't have the Tina Peters stuff. We had nothing. From there, it goes verified. And from verified, now these little numbers are where you can actually, those are the points at which you can actually steal an election. They're called small cons and big cons. Once it's verified, approximately 15 days before the election, the envelopes are to be separated from the ballots. Okay? That happens no more than 15 days in most states. Okay? From there, you feed those ballots into the tabulation machine. Correct? All good right up to this point?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. 20,713 original votes from tabulators out of thin air. So this is where I say, because of the system itself, you can take fake ballots and phantom ballots, and you can create them inside the tabulation system. So you're not actually feeding those ballots through. It's where with the ballots, they can create separate databases that were either there previously or that were inserted there. From there, it goes to adjudication 2. Now, what was the intent of that ballot? Now, here's what you need to know about this. You can adjudicate ballots that are perfect. You can adjudicate ballots that are phantom ballots or fake ballots that are in a database. You can pull those ballots up have them as a valid count. You can even include them in the cast vote record system by which ballots are counted, because the ADA requirement says that you can actually manufacture a ballot, make it look like it's filled in with human hands, and then pass that off as a verified ballot. Okay. Adjudication 2, you literally then go from the adjudication process to intent determined. Once it's determined, it's a good count, goes to the tabulation transfer, and then it goes to the USB drive, right? Now, the fake ballots and the phantom ballots, they might not have voters on them. So the reason why you have to have a connection to the internet is that when you're in that adjudication 2, when you're in this process, you have the ability to suspend ballots inside of the tabulation system. You can suspend those ballots. In other words, they're there, they've been counted, but they're not a part of the count yet because they don't have two things. One, they haven't been validated through the initial process when they were put through the machine because they were fake or phantom ballots that were recreated. Or two, they don't have a voter yet. Now, Joe, ask me how I know this is true.
How do you know, Joe?
Because the machines went down on election day in every state. The machines went down and they came back up. And inside of that space, there's a thing that happens inside of a system where it has to validate information, right? And so you have this information, and when the machines come down, they can do anything they want. So they go out, and once you know, when the polls have closed and everything's done, once you know who voted, what else do you know, Joe? You know who didn't vote.
What? Sure.
So then you can go back out through that outside voter registration system, take people that did not vote, take them over there and attach them to these suspended ballots, pushing them down through the tabulation transfer process and onto the USB drive, and boom.
Yeah.
And guess what?
Yeah.
You'd never know.
Nobody know. You know, Joe, let me mention a couple things real quick. I know we got another guest here that you want to bring on, but just real quick related to what you're saying. One is we learned the name of this company very early on after the election. It was Dominion, and we were writing pieces. We were trying to gather information. One guy reached out to me, real top guy at a real top corporation in America, wanted to remain anonymous, but he had found this document of Dominion out in California's website, maybe the Secretary of State's website, and he looked through it and he says, I never would have approved this system for my company. And that's my job. My job is to look at the systems before they're implemented, before they're put into production in this major US corporation, and either give it the yes or no. He says, I never would have allowed these. And then months later, we find out that there's this audit of the Dominion machines in Georgia, and when the report finally comes out after that was buried for a year or so, we find out from the CISA, the government's own entity, the entity that's supposedly supposed to protect our elections, they say these machines in Georgia were not secure. And that's the main point. And because of that, a bad actor could come in, flip an election, and basically you wouldn't know it. They said, we don't have any evidence that happened, but this could happen. Well, the facts are, in the corporate world, we never would put a system in place, and you know this, Joe. You wouldn't put a system in place if it has security issues. You don't want anybody getting at any of your data, and you don't want anybody inserting any malware or whatever onto your system. It's lunacy that we use this system in the first place. And with all, as you look into it, it's experts like you find out it's such a mess. But they're wanting to use it again. This is the problem. They want to use it again in 2024. They used it in 2022. The system's broke. And in the real world, the corporate world, we'd never put up with this. This is the thing, we're not just saying, hey, this is really, really bad. We're saying we wouldn't use it in the real world because of these material issues with these systems. You don't put a system in place that's broke, that's security, that anybody could jump in and do whatever they want with it. But you just pointed out there, Joe, absolutely. What could happen and how they could steal an election using a system like Dominion.
Joe, that's how they stole the election. I don't think that's how they stole
Yeah.
it. I know that's how they stole the election. I know it because of all the evidence that's come out for the last 2.5 years. It all comes back to the fact that that model was right. And I didn't have any information other than what was publicly available and what I knew from a secondary report. That's it. That's all I had. But our guest is here, and I just found out that she was a Project Veritas journalist in Fulton County. So she has more to add to this as well. So let's welcome Alicia to the show. Alicia, welcome to the show.
Good afternoon. It's such a pleasure to see you, Joe. I have been behind the scenes for a lot of this fight, and it's a lot of undercredited work to capture ballot harvesting in Fulton County in 2020, leading up to, I was there on January 5th. That's probably why I'm not a political hostage. And I'm on today to discuss Ryan Samsel's case, a January 6th political hostage, who is currently supposed to be joining you guys, but he's in solitary confinement in the hole. And it's all because, of course, the ramifications of this stolen election. I could tell you so much about all of the corruption that was taking place in Georgia, in Fulton County. I was an alias as a undercover journalist. My alias was a dumb college student. And I found myself inside Georgia World Congress Center, where all of the ballot harvesting was taking place. Joe, I'm not sure if you want to address the political hostage situation that this stolen election has resulted this country in, or ballot harvesting in Georgia that we're still litigating, which is ironic because we watched this unfold real time with our bare eyes, and forever we're supposed to litigate 1 + 1 = 2 with the satanic cult that is still committing this coup d'etat of the United States government.
You know, it's interesting you talk about that. It's coming full circle right before the election, as far as the election theft in Georgia. And, you know, stolen elections have consequences, and those consequences are not just who gets put in office and the fact they pass laws and they raise taxes and they do things to hurt the American people. It's the unintended consequences of people that stand up and use their First Amendment voice in order to voice their grievances against a corrupt government, a rotted government. And that's what Ryan did.
We're in fear. The people are in fear. Our First Amendment no longer exists. You could see this exhibited in the Proud Boys trial that was completely blacked out by most of the media, where your text messages on Telegram, if you dare emulate the founding fathers, you are now a domestic terrorist. But this has been in Janet Napolitano's writing as soon as she took over the Department of Homeland Security under Obama. We just let it slide. We just take it for granted, our freedoms that we no longer have. It's all a facade at this point, because the FBI can knock on any one of our doors and deem us a terrorist over a meme, and then torture us as they have Ryan Samsel. And his name does deserve to be known by the American public. And I can tell you all the reasons till Sunday why. Joe, I have to say I am very distraught because I have to be support for political hostages around the clock while they get transferred 28 times, beaten, their head slammed in a door by correctional officers, etc., starved, sentenced to 10 years in prisons. Their families calling me all around the clock for help. They can't afford attorneys. The attorneys have no idea what they're doing. This is unprecedented. There's no case law for 1512 because it didn't exist. It was never to use to prosecute the First Amendment or demonstrations, and we can go on. So it's hard to maintain composure during these times. There's no time to sleep. There's no time for vacation. If you really see what's going on, there's no time for narcissism and ego, which has created all of this destruction in our country, including the destruction of the nuclear family and female against female, narcissism, and destroying our bodies with augmented body parts. I am so fed up, and we have to join together now. I can address ballot harvesting. I'll tell you what's going on. In Georgia, Fulton County, there's nothing but Black people in charge of the ballots. with one white overseer. What is that? It is located where there's nothing but crackheads in Ralph Warnock's district. My colleagues and I were swarmed by crackheads around his church. That they all come from jail, which they all are Trump supporters, these young black men who have an animosity towards Joe Biden because of his crime bill. They have spent a decade or more in prison for selling marijuana, which is now fragrantly smelled across the streets of Washington, D.C., just to rub it in our faces. And so they're overseeing our election fraud. We had insiders tell us they're stealing the election. I got to go smoke a blunt with Ruby and Shay, and they'll brag about it. Now, the corporations, where's the footage? Where's the evidence? Am I talking fantasy here? Well, hopefully it'll be exhibited in court. Take it to the bank. And it's not. So now What do they have? This incarceration rate so high. They're targeting the lower white class the same way they've targeted blacks for generations with January 6th.
Yeah. So let's kind of, it's a lot to unpack. Everything you just said is a lot to unpack. I want to kind of get to the part that people can, because right now people's heads are exploding and they're going, it's too big. It's too big to solve. And I'm telling you, it's not too big to solve. It's not too big to solve. And we have to then slow it down. Chaos favors the op, never favors the people. And so I look at this from the perspective of people that are Trump supporters to say, I want to go out and smoke a blunt and they're going to steal the election, Ruby and Shay. Well, Joe is getting sued personally for this Ruby and Shay fiasco. And it's nothing but a fiasco. It's a lie. And Joe, I don't know how much permission I have to be on the outside talking about this, but can I just go off for a second?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, go ahead.
Nobody has been able to depose Ruby and Shay. And a lot of that has to do with lawyering of lawyers and judges that have stood in the way of Ruby because they could not withstand a deposition. They couldn't. They would crack under pressure. That camera in front of them will make them sweat like stuck pigs. But they can't get past it. So what you have now is you have a reverse amount of lawfare that is happening. And I believe that lawyers are complicit in this behavior with judges to stop Ruby and Shay from standing on a stage and taking and having to answer questions because of what you just said. Now, we have proof now that 3,930 ballots, at least, the ones that they actually were able to pull out of this deal, were scanned twice. We have proof that ballots became out of thin air. We have proof, but we've had proof for 3 years. But we have not settled down as a populace and done what you just said, which is come together, have some cohesion, bring people together, and said, no, we've had enough. And so because of that, even with what you're seeing out of Georgia, even what you're seeing come out of the case with Patrick Byrne out of Washington, D.C., and the fact that he got access to tens of thousands of emails that show that Dominion knew that their system was total crap. And at the head of that was Eric Coomer and John Polis, the CEO of Dominion. They knew this. And we also know that Fox News had access to this information, and Fox News settled as a part of a larger corrupt fraud to make it look like everything is fine with the elections, walking past all of this evidence. So now we're going to head into November. We have the same systems in place. We do not have enough checks and balances. And guess what they're going to do in November? They're going to steal this election too. And they're going to steal it just like they did in 2022. They're going to steal it like they did the primaries in 2024. And we're going to face the same thing. And everyone is yelling, let's just go out harvest them. Let's go out register people to vote. Alicia, how ridiculous, or Joe, how ridiculous have we gotten where we have all the evidence and yet we can't even articulate it in such a way that we can put it together and make the American people know exactly what's going on?
In Georgia, in Fulton County, at the Georgia World Congress Center on January 5th, they had erected 12-foot barriers around the military and overseas Iowa ballots. Those ballots came in 72+% for Joe Biden, our military and overseas. What were they doing behind these walls? This is all documented. So when they slap you across the face, they torture you, they put you in jail, they tell you have no rights, then what do you do about it? That's why our founding fathers provided us the Second Amendment. Unfortunately, those are terroristic words to say, but I don't know what the answer is. It is refreshing for you to acknowledge that we're sticking our fingers in the same socket, expecting different results. I don't know what's on the ground. I can only be in one place at once with the political hostage situation. That Americans don't know it's happening. My family and friends don't know J6 are being held in prison still.
Your family doesn't know that?
No. My family, they're Democrat leaning. I'm from New York City. The whole city is. They have no idea that this is happening.
I think that city loves President Trump. I think
Now,
they may be Democrats, but right now I got to tell you, there's a whole lot of no-crats at this point. They're like, I'm out.
they stopped the CCTV footage on January 5th for the first time in months. It stopped streaming on YouTube. The Committee to Defend the President also captured this. So we know they stole it. Joe, what is the prospect going forward? What is happening on the ground that we can expect different results?
Yeah. Well, let's get back to talking about Ryan Samsel for a minute, because I really want to see how is he doing?
Ryan is supposed to be joining you now, and he is in solitary confinement. He just filed a lawsuit pro se with our assistance, me and a legal expert, to finally get surgery. He has a condition called thoracic outlet syndrome that causes him to develop blood clots. He's developed 17 blood clots over the past 3 years, being shuttled around from jail to jail. What is the problem? He reached out to the Gateway pundit in November, as well as other inmates, saying Ryan needs help. He's got a blood clot in his leg. He cannot walk. Oh, well, this seems simple. Let's call your attorney. Your attorney, a high-profile attorney, Stanley Woodward, would not answer your phone calls. Okay, well, let's find you a different attorney. Well, we need the medical records so we can file something. We cannot obtain his medical records. So now he's become a very high-profile January 6th defendant. He's been locked in a closet in Philadelphia for days. We didn't know if this was real. Where did these pictures come from? Marjorie Taylor Greene tweeted them out, General Flynn, and there was allegations that these photographs were fake. Turns out Zachary Rail, a Proud Boy Marine veteran, sentenced to 15 years, serving a sentence in FCI Petersburg, tells me that he smuggled Ryan food through the toilet. And that's how Ryan didn't die, being starved on the 8th floor in Philadelphia somewhere. Why is the government targeting him like this? Well, they would like him to take a plea deal against President Trump. Why him? There's hundreds of defendants. Well, Enrique Tarrio allegedly conspired sedition with the Proud Boys that day, who is serving a 22-year prison sentence in Kentucky, even though he was not at the Capitol. But however, Ryan Samsel was the first to go and get testy with the cops, who allegedly told him they were going to punch him in the face when he said he wanted to go to the inauguration stage, takes off his jacket, and the most sloppy criminal, federal government provocateur, Ray Epps, whispers in his ear. You can see Ray Epps basically around Ryan throughout the rally. Of course, we all know Ray Epps will never see a day in a holding cell or solitary confinement. And we have put out exclusive reports with Ray Epps' interviews with the FBI, in which he lies multiple times. When you lie to the FBI, it's just not another lie. Is a violation of U.S. Code 18 something with a prison term punishable by 5 years in prison, or 8 if it involves domestic terrorism. Ray Epps walks. Ryan Samsel, we don't know what the deal is. We're just begging Judge Gia Cobb to allow him surgery before she gives him whatever sentence that she will for pushing over a gate and rendering aid to Josh Black when police shot Josh Black in the face and they tried to arrest him after. You can see in the footage, Ryan use his torso to protect Black after he's shot in the face. So now, America, we go to demonstrations with your children and your grandparents and expect to be shot in the face if you're a Trump supporter. And that is a violation of law, again, by the government. They're supposed to issue dispersal orders before you make an arrest or dare use less than lethal munitions that can kill people. And the police killed people that day. The American people killed none. Ryan Samsel, we need to have filing fees for this pro se lawsuit. We are urging any attorney who is willing to fight the good fight with us, please help support Ryan Samsel. And we have more J6ers who need help. We could be on the offense and be suing the living daylights out of this government, but we have about 10 J6 attorneys on hand, a bunch of public defenders who coerce these defendants into taking plea deals, because now we've got, I think 75 or 80, 90% of these defendants have told the government they committed crimes they did not commit. They've admitted guilt where they should be fighting the fight of their life. And how could they not? So,
Alicia, I got to say thank you for joining us, and thanks for giving us an update. And we agree with you. I mean, Joe, I don't know if you have anything to add to that, but we agree with you.
Yeah, Alicia, you've just done such a great job. You and a couple others at Gateway Pundit, just really heroic work that you've done. And I remember the day that they showed that picture, came out at Gateway Pundit with Samsel laying on the floor on this mat in a closet. And I interviewed General Flynn that day, and he said to me, you know, I oversaw Afghanistan during the battles there, the war there after 9/11. And he said, we never treated a prisoner like they're treating this man right now. He was appalled by what we saw that day. And this is, you know, you're doing great work to share this and get it out. You're just fantastic. I want to really hats off to you, Kara, who also works at the Gateway Pundit. You guys have probably done more for these January 6th defendants, really prisoners, you know, political, you know, prisoners than anybody in this country. So
80% of them are veterans. 80% of them have made the sacrifice. We could take a little bit of our time. And Ryan himself, he endeavored to be a Marine. So, you know, they put themselves on the front lines for our freedoms. And if they steal it again, or they're who's going to go out and do it again? Is that even, was it worth going to protest?
Well, the issue that I have is that we can all see it. We can see what's happening, and there are people on the left that are just ignoring it. They're ignoring it, and it can only be described as, in my opinion, a mass psychosis based on what the media and the government is continuing to double down on. Now, people are waking up every day, but we have to continue to fight and continue to go and speak out. But make no mistake, come November, we're going to be dealing with a totally different type of fight. November is not, I pray it is never goes violent. But I want to say this. We talk about the fact that, and I said this yesterday. They say that, they're the radical right-wing extremists, and that we're violent. But we've never been violent, except for in response to people that were hurt by the radical left. And so I'm just going to say this. Sometimes violence is the answer. Sometimes violence is the answer. And if it's not the answer, then tell me why we go fight wars.
Well,
tell me why we can't.
Was violence not the answer for them when they took they misdiagnosed millions of Americans and killed them in the hospital with intubators and remdesivir and called it COVID? And when they forced us to take a shot and go against all logic and become a faceless society with germ-ridden fabrics across our face or get kicked off the airplane, was that not violence? When they pull you out of the arms of your pregnant wife for thought crimes and put you in prison for 15 years, I think that's kind of violent. And then they hold you in a court where it's like the Salem witch trials here and no one shows up for you. I think that's violent.
It is violence. But I say this because as someone that's seen quite a bit of violence in my life, I pray no violence on any man. I just don't think that, I don't want to see that it come to that, but we're being pushed into a place where they're basically having us hold on to the bitter end so they can steal the soul of our nation by using the moniker, by using the guilt factor associated with being violent, when all they've been is violent. So, Alicia, thanks for joining us. God bless you.
Just one last line. We herald ourselves as a nation of patriots and Christians. We'll emulate Jesus and love thy enemies. I suppose that's the answer.
I'll love my enemies, but I'll hold them accountable. I'm a man of that. Frankly, we were built for a time such as this. We just need to make sure we stay in the fight. Thanks for joining us. God bless.
God
you.
bless. Please go to Ryan Samsel's Give, Send, Go. And if you could put the link up, we appreciate your support. Every donation goes to this medical battle and us pulling resources together without a lawyer to get into the doctor to get these blood clots removed.
All right. Thank you.
And fibroids. Thank you.
All right.
God bless.
you.
Thanks, Alicia.
Joe, I know that you have to go too. You have your show that starts here in a minute, but thank you for being with us. And
great show.
Yeah, God bless you. And I'll reconnect with you here in the next couple of days.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Joe.
Right.
Great show.
Thanks, brother. There's a Mark Twain saying that I want to bring up. But before I do, we're going to go to a quick commercial break. And when we come back, we got lots more to discuss. Are you ready to move more easily and independently without pain or stiffness holding you back? You want to look in the mirror and see hydrated skin rather than fine lines and wrinkles? I want you to discover Native Path Collagen. It's made with only type 1 and type 3 collagen fibers, the two most important types that make up 90% of the collagen in your body. It's found in your cartilage, your bones, your skin, your hair, your nails, and even your gut. Type 1 and 3 provide maximum benefits without the need for unnecessary fillers. Native Path Collagen is a single ingredient formula with no fillers, additives, artificial sweeteners. Plus, it's third-party tested for heavy metals, ensuring purity and safety. And here's the best part. Native Path offers amazing bundle deals. You can get 3 or 6 packs at a fraction of the price of other brands. So join their private Facebook community and share your success stories, recipes, and support each other on this journey called life. Visit getnativepath.com/CD and start your transformation today. That is getnativepath.com/CD.
Mike Lindell here, and like you, I see our country being destroyed daily. We face massive economic issues, and I can tell you from firsthand experience, there are people in power who threaten the values that have made our country great. Well, I've been a believer in gold and silver for a long time, and I've searched for years for a partner that shares my values. Well, Genesis Gold Group showed me how easy it is to protect your IRA, 401k, or your retirement with gold and silver. Their faith-driven approach to service and stewardship is one that stands out from the rest. So call Genesis Gold Group now at 1-800-200-GOLD. That's 1-800-200-4653, or go to LindellGoldRush.com now.
All right, welcome back. Yeah, I was talking about Mark Twain, and we seem to get a lot of our knowledge or wisdom from people in the past because they've been through it. So Mark Twain said something. He said, the 2 most important days in your life are the day that you're born and the day that you find out why. My find out why moment was in 2020 when I didn't want anything to do with politics. And of course, I supported President Trump, and I did what I could to support fellow conservative candidates. I didn't know how the sausage was made, didn't really care. I just wanted to take care of my community. I hung out with people that, frankly, played football with people that were, some of them were gang members, got involved in flag football and hung out with young men so that I could help mentor them into a better life. I gave of my fortune to many, many people and many, many different types of programs that help kids get better quality education or just get access to things that they didn't have access to in their environments. Then 2020 came along, and it wasn't the election that got me involved in this. It was something more sinister. It's the fact that I spent years in the Middle East and Africa, and I understood and had seen what they were doing in the United States done on other countries before. And I said, I know what this is. This is an op. And I couldn't stay silent when I started seeing it affect people around me. I started seeing what they were doing with COVID to shut down communities, shut down churches, shut down schools. And then little by little, things started to come out of that, such as the fact that they were grooming children at a young age, and that many parents were sending their kids to school saying, hey, listen to your teachers. Only the teachers were saying your parents are stupid. And oh, by the way, are you sure you're a boy? We've seen a molestation of the children in the education system. And much of what has happened there, we would say, well, I live in a conservative environment. Well, it doesn't matter because the mandates come down from the Department of Education. And with the teachers' unions and the power that they hold and the sword that they yield, they were doing massive amounts of harm to people in our community, children. They started there. And it's not a mistake that it happened in 2020. They had to make sure that they had proper density when it came to judges and lawyers and politicians and legislators and unelected bureaucrats. They need to make sure that they had enough people who would do exactly what they were told in those positions before they yielded the sword. And they knew that President Trump in another 4 years could dismantle much in those last 4 years of what he had seen so obviously, the institutional rot. And the only thing that has saved part of our society is the fact that President Trump had a more conservative bench in the Supreme Court. But every other apparatus of government below that is rotted to the core. So I made a decision in 2020. Now, it doesn't really make a difference that I made a decision. What makes a difference is that many eyes have opened. And we started to see that we didn't take care of our own land. We didn't tend to the weeds. We didn't pay attention. We were very apathetic. And we didn't want to get involved in politics because it's dirty. Well, it's only dirty because they make it dirty. And they make it dirty and they make it disgusting because they don't want to make it attractive for people to get involved in their communities and take care of the people that live around them. They would much rather have the ability to betray and enslave the people. And the people that are in those positions, they could never run a company. Many of them could not even balance a checkbook. And it's been proven, by the way, that this is the case. There's been stories about people in Congress that are committing crimes, that can't balance their checkbook, that are running out and doing horrible things on their spouses. Those are all documented. And so there is no appetite for the politicians in this position that funnel up to the head of the snake. But none of us can really see the head of a snake. We just see Obama. We see Hillary Clinton. We see George Soros. We see people that they let us see. Yuval Noah Harari. People that say that we need to shrink our population and we need to stop people from having babies and destroy election systems and make it so that people are under one new world order. Those are the people that we see. But who is really pulling the strings? Who is it that's behind all of this that we can't see? And much like when you walk into a room and you know that they know that you know that they stole elections, that the judiciary is rotted at the core. When a judge forces you to do exactly what the judge says, you have to respect me. You have to listen to me. You have to be under my care and control. I get to yell at you. I can do whatever I want to you because I'm the judge. But that was never how the system was designed to work. And now, the long arm of injustice that frankly was doing this to black communities long before it was cool, now has brought it to the doorstep of every single American. And we didn't want to do anything about it then. We said, it's not. I'm glad it's not us. They rotted out the education system. They poured drugs into their community. And now what are they doing to your community? They poured drugs into your community. They're using the same playbook they use to destroy minority families, to destroy you and your family. They're using the same systems of divide, and nothing is different. And so we can see it. We know what it is. So how do we fix it? I think the first place we have to start is we have to start by going and talking to the people that they used it on previously. And we got to say, look, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that they locked your son up for 10 years for an ounce of marijuana. I'm sorry that I looked at your community differently because you had less opportunity to education. And you could say, Joe, that's not true. That's not, we're so giving. Yeah, but we gave and then we walked away and we did not hold them accountable for how they spent the money, much like we don't hold the government accountable for how they spend our tax dollars. So we've got to create these unlikely alliances. I've been talking about that for over 3 years. We've got to be honest about where we are as a country and as a community. We've got to heal inside while we take a look at who on the outside, the traitors of our nation, the people that have betrayed every bit of trust of the American people, are hell-bent on destroying. While we hold them accountable and we say there are them and there is us. But that's going to take a lot. It's going to take a whole lot of humility, a whole lot of leadership, and it's going to take God. It's going to take churches being strong and standing up and not accepting the mores of society outside of the walls of their church. It's going to have to take people not wanting or caring about what reputation they get from the mainstream media or these radical leftists. It's going to take courage, true, unadulterated courage. And we just don't have a lot of it. So we have to start modeling it and modeling it together. I got a bunch of stuff that I want to go through still about this election. And we heard the story about what's happening to Ryan. It's pretty big. But I want to tell you a little bit more about what's happening with Ryan specifically and others that were adversely affected on January 6th. And what Alicia just said was funny. She said, nobody on our side killed anyone on their side, but they did kill people on our side. But you didn't hear anything about that. You have people that have created a false narrative. Ashley Babbitt was murdered. She was murdered. Roseanne Boylan was murdered. Murdered at the hands of the police. Now, I'm going to say this because I think it's important to say. Yesterday was a really tough day for me. August 6th, 2017 is the day that the police murdered my brother. Yeah. And it's been 7 years. It's been 7 years, and I still don't have justice. That same police officer was caught on a TikTok video talking about how he chased someone on a motorcycle and they died. He was talking about my brother. He was bragging about it. The problem is that we want to create absolutes. We want to say, I absolutely back the blue. Absolutely. That I'm going to back the police. And so the conflict that it creates in people like me and probably 99% of the country is that we've all run into bad police officers. We've all had those interactions where we're like, who is this guy? And so you look at those bad police officers and say, well, do you support them? Well, if you support any and all police officers, say back the blue, then you have to support the mechanism by which they allow the cover-ups to happen. And make no mistake, the reason why they used George Floyd, it was planned. They had to find a useful idiot like George Floyd, a criminal, career criminal, with 4 times the lethal limit of fentanyl in his system. And then you had to find someone, a coroner, that was willing to lie about the cause of death and list it as a homicide. That's the same system that in Pennsylvania with Josh Shapiro ruled a stabbing death. I think it was over 20 times a woman was stabbed as a suicide. A suicide and not a murder. That's the same type of logic that they use all over the country to lock up J6ers who have the right to a redress of grievances. That they used a law called the 1512 that was found to be unconstitutional. They knew it was novel, and they knew that they did not have a right to suppress or hold the American people accountable for standing up for the fraud, but they did anyway. They did anyway because there's no checks and balances against a corrupt system that they designed to be this way over the last 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 decades. The institutional slavery that we face in our country is something that pushes us to a place where we think we have to support the thing that we pray for supports us, but we instinctually know inside it doesn't. Because the apparatus itself is designed to protect them. They've already designed the system of them versus us. And let me just go a little further with this. When you roll down the street and you see a police officer with a radar gun, what do you think to yourself? I'm going to tell you what happens. Your blood pressure goes up. You look straight down at your speed. Maybe you're doing 3, 4, 5 miles an hour over, and the first thing in your mind is this a fair cop, or is he going to pull me over for going 5 over the speed limit? Tell me that's not what you think. That's the reality. You don't think to yourself, oh, hi, Mr. Police Officer. I'm so glad you're out here. You think, pulls me over for 5 over, writes me a ticket for $100. Maybe I get 2 points for it. My insurance goes up. And they get to dictate sticks and carrots all the way through our society. The IRS says we get to take 30% of your income. Your property tax doubles. We look at taxes that you have on food and gasoline. You look at your personal property tax if you have a business, or the tax that is on employees of 7.5% for you to have the right to have somebody else work inside of your business. Now, all the while, big corporations are given huge tax benefits and tax breaks so that they don't have to pay that 7.5%. Now, it costs them on the average about 1.3%. But if you're a small business in the community and you're supporting your community, you must pay the full weight that they decide you must pay in order to operate outside of their schema. That's the reality. Then they build this system of the mainstream media with the mockingbird media that says over and over and over again, nothing to see here. The elections are free and fair, and it's misinformation or disinformation. And oh, by the way, you no longer have a First Amendment right. Matter of fact, we're now bragging about the fact that we're coming to take your Second Amendment right, altering and changing the course of history for our country. But we sit and we take it. And we say, no, I back the blue. So I don't back the blue. I back the police officers that back me. I don't back the police state. In your community, I want you to go to every red light. I want you to look up and tell me what you see. I promise you, at the top of every red light is a camera. Now, I know this to be a fact because I had a friend that got in an accident. And then we went to the state and said, hey, can we get access to those cameras? And they're like, no, we don't have access. We can't get you access. So who are the cameras for? Well, we had an accident here, so we really could use the cameras because it would prove that the camera was, that light was red when that woman ran through and almost killed my friend. Sorry, we can't help you. But on every single red light, every single signal, you will look up and you will see at least one camera on every signal. But you back the blue. When you go to police functions, you'll see that they have MRAPs, or vehicles that literally are impervious. You'll see that they have the best SWAT gear. And you know what? I want them to have the best SWAT gear. But then they don't put a police officer in every school. They make them soft targets for radical individuals that feel like that they want to make a statement and go out with a blaze of glory. And then many of these police officers, like in Uvalde, decide they're going to stand down for 45 minutes while a diabolical killer goes in and murders dozens of students. I'm sorry if this is a little too much truth for you, but I don't back the blue. I back the police officers in my community that back me. But it is a police state. And that police state does not favor you as a citizen. It doesn't favor you as an American. It certainly doesn't favor them in Chicago, where over 70% of the murders are completely unsolved. Do you think it's because they don't have the ability to identify who the killer is? Go to Chicago. They have more cameras on the south side of Chicago, I believe, than they do in most capitals. Almost as many as that they have in Washington, D.C. But they can't identify who the killer is. Why? Because the entire idea is to create chaos. And you would say, Joe, how do you know? And I would tell you that because I've seen it before. Not just here in the United States, I've seen it in other countries. It's the same playbook. It's one to keep you on your toes, to make your life just, hopefully you don't get caught in the net. I hope I don't get caught in the net. I hope I don't get caught in the net. I hope the cops don't pull me over. I hope I get to keep my job. I hope that they don't wreck the economy. I hope that they don't raise oil prices, which then lead to indexes of inflation that are through the roof. I hope. But they taught this generation, my generation, about this thing called the Constitution. And yet we run around thinking that somebody is going to save us. We have police. And you wonder why the poor black community or brown community is like, no, I don't see anything. I'm going to go handle it myself. Why? I'll tell you why. They don't trust them. And it's not that they don't trust that police officer standing in front of them. They don't trust an apparatus or a system that locks them up for 10 years for an ounce of marijuana. They don't trust them because their car is old, because they have less opportunity, and you get pulled over as DWP or DWB or DWB, and you'd say, well, what's DWP? Driving while poor. Yeah. You go by, I go by in a $80,000 car, no problem. I'm doing 7 over, no problem. Old George comes by and he comes down in a 1987 Corolla. Looks like it just got munched in some sort of, I don't know, somebody chewed it up, spit it out, and then put an engine in it. And they do 6 over. And so they roll up on them and they're like, yeah, I'm sorry, you were speeding, your license registration. Oh, and by the way, your headlight's out. And oh, by the way, your windshield's cracked. And oh, by the way, and by the time that police officer that's there to serve and protect is done, you got a $350 ticket on a person that makes $2,000 a month. After taxes makes $1,500 a month. And now they could barely make things meet. They can't pay the $300. And it just literally puts them into a spiral. It's designed that way. And as I'm sitting here saying this, some of the poorest among you know what I'm saying is true. And some of the wealthy people out there are like, yeah, I have no idea what you're talking about. Well, next time you're rolling down the road and you see a cop behind a car, look at what kind of car they're behind. Yeah. It's not my Jeep 392. It's not a Lexus. More often than not, it's somebody that's driving a car that's 20 years old. And more often than not, that car the person sitting outside the car on the curb while they're searching the vehicle. You think I'm lying? Check my math. You know, it's I'm not supposed to go this long on the podcast, and lately I've been going really long because I think that we put ourselves in these categories. You know, election fraud. You know, we let the left, you know, election deniers and misinformation, disinformation. They just lie. They just make it up. They're like a bunch of high school nimwits that they want to be the part of the cool kid club. They're so desperate to be a part of it that they'll lie about anything just to get a seat at the table. And that's what we deal with everywhere. And we got TikTok videos and people standing up, and you know, Kamala Harris cackling, and you got a governor of Minnesota whose wife said that she opened the windows to smell the burning tires, as it was some sort of victory as people's property was being destroyed. No correlation. And these are the people who yield the sword and the power. Weld the power. So I want to go through this because I think it's important. There's now a lawsuit, and maybe this is a little bit of accountability. I just want you to rethink when you say that I'm going to back the blue. I don't back the blue. I back the police in my community because they're good men and women. I back them because I've never had an adverse relationship with the police department in my community. Never. They're all good men. But that's a culture and ethos. And coincidentally, this is the craziest thing. Coincidentally, as a result of that ethos inside of the sheriff's office, they don't get many complaints from the community. And they'll do things like, you have a guy that just gets out of jail and he's walking down the highway, they'll pick him up and take him to the train station. That's the difference between the police and my community. But tell me if that's the difference with the police in your community. I got pulled over by a police officer. I was doing, 9 over. No, that's not true. I was doing like 15 over. I was flying. He pulled me over. I looked at him. I was like, hey, bro, here's license registration. I was speeding. He looks at me. He's like, you dumb shit, slow down. And he handed me back my license registration and told me to go. Now, would he have done the same thing had I been black or poor or driving an 87 Corolla? I don't know. But I know that that's how he treats me. But I'm always paying attention to this in my community. Why? Because they murdered my brother. And because I grew up poor. And because I saw the police act like assholes pretty regularly. And I saw judges that literally leaned on the throats of anyone that walked in their courtroom so they could feel powerful. And that's what I see them doing now. They did it to President Trump, and they lied in New York. Not just one case, but in 2 cases. They made up charges. They skipped past the rule of law and even a statute of limitations, even if it was true, even though the jury instructions say this is all a joke. They walked past presidential immunity, which has been well documented. They refused to hear a case of a state suing another state, Pennsylvania, Texas, suing Pennsylvania for fraud in the election. And that went all the way up to the highest court. And all I remember him saying is, well, they were burning things in the street. Interesting. Well, we hope that this case doesn't get dismissed. But another problem that we face is immunity. Let's talk about the things that hurt our community the most. Pharmaceutical companies, they have qualified immunity. They can push poison into your blood, cause you to die, kill off your family, raise autism rates, and they are not held accountable for anything that they do. In the meantime, they go spend hundreds of millions of dollars on cable networks and networks, not because they care if you actually buy that drug that's on there saying, ask your doctor about this. No. They pay the premium on every one of those so that none of those news agencies will ever pay attention to anyone that comes to them and says, they have wronged me, they killed my mother, they killed my father. And if you think I'm kidding, I mean, this is the same system on the energy side. I mean, the Exxon Valdez deal took over 30 years. All of the plaintiffs were nearly dead before they settled that case from 1987. Go check my math. The police have qualified immunity. Judges have immunity. So all of the things, politicians have immunity to where they can go out and buy any stock they want. They can get an insider tip that says, hey, put $1 in this, it'll be worth $20 tomorrow. And they'll drop $1 million in it, make $30 million. And guess what? They're immune to prosecution for insider trading. Go check the math. So now you have a federal hearing is set for Judicial Watch's $30 million Ashley Babbitt wrongful death lawsuit. That was set for yesterday. I'm going to put this up, B1. Judicial Watch will hold its first federal courthouse hearing today in the $30 million wrongful death lawsuit filed on behalf of the estate of Ashley Babbitt. Court hearing today is scheduled at 4 p.m. in the U.S. District Court for the District of Columbia. Judicial Watch is suing the federal government on behalf of the Babbitt family. Lawsuit includes the charges against the U.S. government in the wrongful death of the Air Force veteran on July 6, 2021. Ashley Babbitt was one of 4 Trump supporters who were killed that day after riots broke out at the U.S. Capitol. Nancy Pelosi refused requests by President Trump to bring in the National Guard to protect the U.S. Capitol that day. Judicial Watch filed a $30 million wrongful death suit against the federal government in the Capitol Police shooting of the Air Force veteran Ashley Babbitt back in January. The Washington Examiner reported that the suit was filed on behalf of Babbitt's estate and her husband, Aaron Babbitt, and claims the officer who shot Babbitt was incompetent and dangerous and should have recognized Babbitt posed no threat to Congress when she entered the House Speaker's lobby. Judicial Watch President Tom Fitton shared on X at the time, "We just filed an important lawsuit, $30 million wrongful death action against the United States government on behalf of Ashley Babbitt's husband and her estate. Ashley Babbitt was killed for no good reason that day, shot and killed by Lieutenant Michael Byrd. Judicial Watch is seeking accountability from the United States government that is responsible for that awful and unjustified shooting death." Now, let me just tell you what's going to happen in the District Court of Washington, D.C. They're going to say that he had no wrongdoing, and they're going to dismiss this case. You heard it here first. They're going to dismiss it. They're not going to let it go anywhere. They're going to force them to appeal. They're going to take it to the next appeal process. They're going to try and wear them down and not get any sort of justice for Ashley Babbitt. How do I know that's going to happen? Because that is the modus operandi for the federal government. That's what they do. They use the apparatus and they use the judges that are rotted to the core. And this has nothing to do with hating the government or loving the government. I am not anti-U.S. government. I am anti-rotted pieces of trash who have done an immense amount of harm to my brothers and sisters in this country and have treated us like institutional slaves. That's my problem. And I've paid more than my fair share of taxes. And I've done everything that I can to support my community. And yet I see them do just an enormous amount of harm. We're going to take a commercial break. When we come back, I'm going to talk a little bit about Kamala Harris. And then I'll give you an update on what's happening with Tina Peters. We'll be right back.
Introducing the all-new Prepper Bar. These 62.2 gram bars, perforated and easily broken into 3 denominations, will fit all of your needs. Perfect for asset protection from inflation, economic turmoil, or use it for bartering or trade. Prepper bars make an ideal gift for precious metal lovers. Available in gold and silver, these slim Prepper bars fit neatly into your wallet and can be used in any situation. As gold and silver prices surge and economists predict shortages, now is the time to secure your precious metals with Prepper bars. The only bar divisible into 3 different sizes for maximum utility, tradability, and proudly mined and minted in the United States, these Prepper bars are IRA eligible and will help you diversify your wealth. To order your own Prepper bars, go to www.frankspeechbar.com. That's www.frankspeechbar.com.
I'm excited to announce my all-new mattress topper. In the times we're in, I wanted to bring you the best affordable mattress topper ever. So I took my 2 best technologies and combined them to make the ultimate mattress topper. And now you can get it for as low as $69.98. Queen size, only $99.98. It all starts with my famous MyPillow foam that provides you that overall full body support. Second is the individual comfort supports that give you an amazing custom sleep experience. It's like it's made specifically for you. The queen size alone has over 14,000 comfort supports. This is the perfect mattress topper to improve any bed. New bed, old bed, your guest beds. Get them for every bedroom in your house. Go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to get the all-new My Mattress Topper for as low as $69.98. Queen size, only $99.98. Don't delay. Order today.
Welcome back. Let's talk about Kamala Harris and Tim Walz for a minute. They began their campaign together in Philadelphia yesterday, right after she announced that he would be her running mate. He basically acted like a dollar store liberal version of Trump. Let's go ahead and play cut 1.
And when somebody tells you they believe him. He said he'd ban abortion across this country, and he'll do it, whether or not Congress is there or not. Donald Trump's not fighting for you or your family. He never sat at that kitchen table like the one I grew up at, wondering how we were going to pay the bills. He sat at his country club up in Mar-a-Lago, wondering how he can cut taxes for his rich friends. And I got to tell you, his running mate shares his dangerous and backward agenda for this country. J.D. Vance literally wrote the foreword for the architect of the Project 2025 agenda. Like all regular people I grew up with in the heartland, J.D. studied at Yale, had his career funded by Silicon Valley billionaires, and then wrote a bestseller trashing that community. Come on! That's not what middle America is. And I got to tell you, I can't wait to debate the guy. That is, if he's willing to get off the couch and show up. So, you see what I did there?
Well, there you go. There's the guy that said that J.D. Vance somewhere along the line is Yale buddies. J.D. Vance came up from the poorest of a poor community and literally bootstrapped and did everything, including serving his military honorably, which, oh, that's right. You abandoned your post in the National Guard when you found out you were going to have to go to Iraq. You're a coward. He also told Republicans to mind their own damn business. I can't believe this is actually really happening. Let's go ahead and play cut 2.
Even if we wouldn't make the same choice for ourselves, there's a golden rule. Mind your own damn business.
So that's rich coming from a guy who wanted to have people in your community tattletale on other people in their communities so they could have them arrested and thrown in jail for 90 days if they violated the COVID order that you're not allowed to hang out with your family. Rich from that guy, mind your own business. See, it only applies when they're killing babies and destroying communities and then saying somewhere along the line, I'm here to help. But then he signed also laws requiring tampons in boys' bathrooms, allowed kids to get their body parts chopped off, to add porn to schools. And he called Republicans weird and creepy. Let's go ahead and play this.
You know it, you feel it. These guys are creepy and, yes, just weird as hell. That's what you see.
And then what they did is they brought the only guy that I guess makes any sense, right? I mean, this is I don't even know how you would bring this guy on and to back it all up. So he wanted to echo those sentiments. Go ahead and play cut 4.
You know, this election is about moving our country forward with Vice President Harris and Governor Walz. Or a couple of really weird dudes. And look, I gotta tell you, I work with J.D. Vance. I do. And I'm here to confirm that he is a seriously weird dude.
He's a seriously weird dude. The Mockingbird media, I don't even know how they get their talons into these people, but they repeat over and over again, he's just weird. He's just weird. He's just weird. That's the way they're going to win, is not addressing anything to do with the economy. It's by calling him weird. This is the country we're in now. Every other country in the world is laughing at us. And we look like a bunch of school children fighting each other. We really do. We really do. I mean, that's what I would do. I would call someone weird. Well, you know what's really weird? Ben Stiller. I don't even know. I've never seen Jewish people do as much as they can against their own people as these sellout clowns. But let's go ahead and play cut D1.
I just want to let you know I'm going to match your $150,000 donation.
Oh,
that's cool.
Okay.
Just get the ball rolling. Cool.
Good. Gonna put the house up for sale.
Yeah, I know what you're thinking. Probably another funny guy here to tell you why to vote for Kamala Harris. But I feel like I'm different because I'm not a comic. You know, I'm an actor. I played Derek Zoolander. I was in Dodgeball. I got my dick stuck in my zipper 25 years ago, if you're old enough to get that reference. So I know whereof I speak. You can trust me. This is where I imagine thousands of people are just laughing on the Zoom. So I'll just wait.
I'm laughing.
Thank you. No, you know, seriously, I'm here because I'm so genuinely excited about the potential to actually win this election. What's happened in the last couple of weeks, just the turning of the tide, and that, you know, Vice President Harris can actually win this thing if we all just rally around and really take advantage of this incredible energy that's happening. And, you know, I want just a decent person in the White House, you know, a person who cares about democracy more than themselves, who doesn't lie, who's not fomenting anger and rage, someone who cares about, you know, about people. And that's what Kamala Harris does. She's like a human being. She acts like a human being, and she has empathy and she has humor, and it's beautiful when she laughs because she's a real person who is reacting to things. And I believe in everything that she's, you know, standing up for. You know, she wants to put an end to gun violence in the country. There's a Zoom tomorrow night about gun violence. And, you know, I mean, as everybody knows, we're the only high population country in the world that has this problem. And it's awful because it can be changed. You know, we can do something about it. And she's going to work to do that. And she's energizing a whole group of people who were not engaged before. I think it's incredibly important. By the way, I know this is hilarious. This is probably the funniest of all of them. I'm sorry. I got nothing except how I feel. But, you know, I mean, the fact that she's going to fight for a woman's right to choose, that's so important. I have a 22-year-old daughter who I know that's so important to. She's watching right now. Hi, Ella. You know, this issue is so important to the majority of people in this country. And I'm just seeing that her generation become engaged in a way they weren't. And my son's 19, you know, he's going to vote in his first election. And, you know, they've grown up the last 10 years with this crazy world, and the level of discourse that has just, you know, gotten to such a low level. And this is a chance to really, you know, to protect democracy and to you know, go in the right direction and go forward. So that's why everybody's got to get out and vote and donate. And she's also a historic candidate. You know, it's going to be the first woman president, and that's incredibly exciting. And, you know, she's Indian, she's Black, she's everything. You can be more than one thing. It's incredible. You know, I'm Jewish and Irish. I wish I was Black. Every white Jewish guy wishes he was Black. You know, it's just get out there and vote and donate and like take advantage. This is such an important time right now, and this wave of energy that's happening, we got to keep going with it. So please do everything you can.
Can you pop me back on? Thanks, Ben. Really well.
Every white, rich Jewish man wishes he is Black. This is unbelievable. All right, we're going to close out. But before we do, I want to give you an update on Tina Peters. You're not going to believe this. Actually, you will believe this. This is completely believable. Let me just give you an update. And this is from Rachel Alexander. This just shows you how corrupt and crooked the judge is in Mesa County. It's kabuki theater. It is unbelievable. It's unbelievable what these people are doing, what the judge is doing, In the Tina Peters trial, her defense is trying to cross-examine Dominion's general counsel, David Frontera. They served him with a subpoena. Frontera's attorney argued that he knows nothing about the case. However, Peters' attorney, John Case, pointed out that there is evidence in the D.C. case involving Dominion that Frontera does have knowledge and said he was colluding with the Colorado Secretary of State and the Mesa County DA. It's all coming out. But this happened. The Democrat-appointed judge is clearly not going to have him testify. His dismissive demeanor regarding the issue since yesterday has made it clear that he already made up his mind. Even though there's evidence to show that he does have knowledge. In fact, he just lost it in the courtroom, ordered the cameras off. He turned the cameras off in the courtroom and told everyone to get out. And now he's having an off-the-record conversation right now. These are evil people. That judge, Matthew Barrett, evil. Evil, crooked. I don't know what they have on him. But evil and crooked. Dan Rubenstein, evil and crooked. The reason why Dominion wants to keep all of that case file from Patrick Byrne's case that they put under a protective order, it was so bad. The information that was turned over was so bad that Dominion went into a federal court. They're suing Patrick Byrne for defamation. They went into a federal court and they said, you have to stop people from getting access to this information. Access to information about Eric Coomer of Dominion Voting Systems. The Antifa Satanist that sued me and President Trump and Patrick Byrne and Kyle Clark, what's his name? Clay Clark. And he sued Mike Lindell for defamation. Only nobody lied. The only liar in the room is Eric Coomer. But now they want to control the case. You have all of this ammunition. And they want to control the case, and they're like, oh no, it's going off the rails. They're going to start bringing in stuff about the fraud and the collusion and the RICO violations by people in government and Dominion voting systems to steal the voice of the American people. And that is what is happening in Mesa County right now. And that is why this case is so important. It is the corrupt, evil, rotted establishment versus a woman that has stood up, a Gold Star mom that they're trying to throw in jail for decades. And they don't care because it doesn't matter to them. They get to dole out and do anything they want to us peasants. All while sacrifices are made. Ashley Babbitt murdered by a police officer that literally an incompetent man who murdered Ashley Babbitt. Tina Peters, a Gold Star mom who served her community, who did everything by the book. And now we have collusion by the DA, the attorney for Dominion, now the judge. This is what we deal with today. Let's pray us out. Sooner or later, the bow is going to break. We just got to make sure we have God on our side and we're willing to stand up regardless of the sacrifices. We are running toward the beaches of Normandy. Right now, this is what we're doing. So let's pray. Father God, thank you for the opportunity to have Joe Hoft and have Alicia on this morning. Thank you for giving us the strength to continue to fight 4 years later. Thank you, Father, for lifting the veil and showing us the rotted evil that we face in our communities, in our country, and around the world. And thank you, Father, for the men and women who have stood in the gap between those that do harm and those that have been harmed. Father, we want consequences for the millions of people that have been killed by these evil people. And I'm not just talking about the people in our country, but the people all over the world that have been killed, have been harmed by this evil apparatus that exists inside of our government. Father, I know that your will is to be done. I ask you to give us the strength to lift off the burden that we feel. This burden of hopelessness, Father, I just ask you that we set that aside and that you help us get to a place where we can have these unlikely alliances, that we can combine with other people in our community, regardless of where they are, what football team they play for in politics, that we can come together as one and have it them versus us. The good people, Father, that are following you, and the evil of our society. Help us, Father, that we may defeat that evil and we may get back to a sensible, honest realm where the mores of society are dictated by goodness, where you are restored, Father. I ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen. We'll see you guys tomorrow morning. I will be doing some interviews up in Grand Junction, and for the next couple of days, we'll be there to support Tina Peters. So God bless you and talk to you soon.